Hello, my name's David Seaman, and this is the Three Lions Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Three Lions Podcast. My name is Russell Osborne. This is an independent England football supporters podcast. Hope to find you well. How are you? Thank you very much for the kind messages you sent to me with regards to the last episode. That was the one where I took a look at the draw for the World Cup. Seems what I said echoed your feelings too. You can listen to it if you haven't already. You can find it at your podcast provider of choice. Now, I'm afraid to say, since then, my feelings haven't changed at all with regards to FIFA. They've probably got worse. You didn't think they could, but they can, and they have. I'm not sure if I actually shied away from actually saying this, but I will now. FIFA. They are one of the most corrupt organisations on the planet. I don't know if I said that last time. I don't know if I thought to myself, well, I'll get into trouble if I say that, but to hell with it. They are. It's disgusting the way FIFA are. It pains me to say it, but they are really killing my enthusiasm for the game. I think if it wasn't for UEFA, and even I find this a little bit hard to say, I think UEFA are just about making me hang on in there. UEFA appear to have consideration for the fans. Just. Now, before I carry on, don't forget you can follow the show on social media. Just search Three Lions Podcast. Give it a like, a follow, whatever you feel the need to do. But it's on the likes of Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I know I've been a little bit vocal recently on Twitter, and many people have seen what I've had to say and agreed, which is good. It appears, as I say, I seem to be echoing your feelings too. Now, coming up on this episode, I will be once again chatting with a friend of the show, Gaurav Singhvi. Now, he's over in the States, and he gives us a current feel of things over there. And he has a few hints and tips to offer too. So stay tuned for that. Now, actually, though, in the chat, we mention prices. We spoke before the prices were released for us as England fans through the Supporters Travel Club. And now I've picked myself up off the floor, taken a few deep breaths. I've got to mention it, haven't I? Travel Club members, you'll already be aware of this, but I know there are many of you who listen to the show who aren't Travel Club members. So this will give you some sort of gauge of how extortionate the prices are. I make no apologies. I'm probably going to get into a little bit of another rant here, and I'm probably going to throw in a few numbers which might complicate things, but hopefully we'll be all right. Let me just throw in, just because I can, not that it means anything in the grand scheme of things, but England are usually seen as a bit of a cash cow. Opponents' FAs know that we travel in numbers. When we can, we'll fill allocations. So those FAs, they will inflate their ticket prices somewhat. But just looking back on this qualifying campaign, the away games saw us pay £50 for Andorra, although that should have a little asterisk by it, given that it was played in Barcelona in a hired ground, so the costs there had to have been taken into account. Serbia away, £5. £5 sterling. Latvia away was 53 quid, and then Albania last month, November, was £33. Just bear those in mind when I tell you how much our World Cup tickets are. And I know they're not comparable, but it's just as a I'm just putting it out there. Again, for those that are not fully aware when it comes to the World Cup and how ticket structures are, the seats are broken down into different categories. In this case, it's 3 different categories. Category 1 are usually the best seats in the house. They're the ones along the sidelines, upper or lower tier. Category 2, they may well be behind the goals in this instance. Behind the goals usually was for the supporters, the genuine fans of the nations playing. England Supporters Travel Club will usually get the best priced tickets. They'll be behind the goals. And then there's category 3, usually the upper tier, and usually the cheapest. Well, they are the cheapest. Each stadium will have different ways of doing it, but that's a very basic way of looking at it. So let's start by taking a look at our match against Croatia in Dallas. Now, category 3 prices, $265. All of these will be in dollars. $265 is the cheapest ticket. Just let it sink in for a moment. Category 2, $500. Category 1, $700. Ghana in Boston. Category 3, $220. Category 2, $430. Category 1, $600. And then Panama in New Jersey. Category 3, $220. Category 2, $465. Category 1, $620. Now, if we progress, I've said previously, I'm not going to assume that. It's likely, but it's not a given. Let's look a little bit further. Round of 32. Remember, there is this extra round in this tournament. Category 3, the cheapest, $235. Category 2, $490. Category 1, $610. Round of 16, cheapest, Category 3, $295. Cat 2, $605. Cat 1, $770. Remember, these are all in dollars. The quarter final, should we get there. Category 3, your cheapest, $680. Category 2, this is where we're now talking 4 figures, $1,015. Category 1, the most expensive, $1,440. It's mind-blowing. Semi-final tickets, Category 3, $920. Category 2, we're still 4 figures, but we've moved up $1,000, $2,440. For the semi-final, Category 1, $3,170. Sounds like some sort of game show with this amount of money just being spoken. I'm not even going to bother with the 3rd place match because, well, no one's interested, are they? Let's move to the final. Big if, we get there. The cheapest category ticket, Category 3, $4,185. If you want to go Category 2, $5,575. You ready for Category 1? For the final, if we were to get there, England fans would have to pay $8,680. Now you begin to see the extent of fans' anger and their worries as well. To follow England to the final, should we get there, would cost Category 3, cheapest, all the way $7,020. This isn't football. This isn't the working class game. If you have enough money, you could lay out $16,590 to go Category 1 all the way. I shouldn't need to put all of those into pounds for you to realise it's horrifically expensive. Then there's the allocations. It's been said that each nation will receive about 8% of the stadium capacity. Now, it's probably a touch lower once you take into account any segregation required, any broadcasters requirements, little things like that are factored in. It's actually 8% of the saleable capacity. So let's go back to that Croatia game. In a stadium that holds 80,000 England fans, we receive a total of 4,022 tickets. Now, these are then divided up between those categories, category 1, 2 and 3. There are 1,006 in category 1, the same in category 2, and there are 2,010 in category 3. So you may want a category 3 ticket. You may not be able to get that. Either they may be all sold out, or the amount of caps that you've accrued following England might not be enough to get category 3. So you're then forced into paying for a more expensive category ticket. The same is for the Ghana game in Boston. Stadium, roughly 64,500. England fans can be expected to be given 3,889 tickets. And they're split 973 for category 1 and 2 and 1,943 for category 3. And whilst we're here, let's look at the Panama game in the MetLife Stadium. Incidentally, that's where the final will be played. So a capacity of 82,000, roughly, remember. We've been given a total of 4,826 tickets. 1,207 for Cats 1 and 2, and then for Category 3, 2,412. Let's just take that particular game into consideration for a moment. Let's say we sell out that Panama fixture with all 4,826 England fans paying for each ticket in each category bracket. It works out at US dollars 1,835,235. That's how much FIFA make from 8% of the stadium. That's what they make from England fans. That's what they make from you. Converted, I will do this one, it's just under £1.4 million. 8%. One game. 90 minutes. Obviously, the further the teams go within the tournament, this just increases. I saw one tweet where someone said, given the prices, it works out at $46.50 per minute for the final. And actually, I don't know what category that was actually for. But regardless, it's criminal. Criminal. It's corrupt. I look back on previous World Cup ticket prices that I paid. I put this on Twitter, and I'm fully aware of inflation. But putting that to one side, I've been fortunate enough to go to 4 World Cups. My first one was back in Japan and Korea in 2002. So what is that? It says 23 years ago. Dear. I went to 4 matches. And I will say then, clearly I was a lot younger. I had less ties. So I was in a position to be able to splash out a little more. Twice I paid for Category 1 tickets. They were both $150. One of those was for an England group game and an England knockout game. I went to the Denmark one there. But I also paid for 2 Category 3 games. They were $60. I went to Germany in 2006, and for reference, back then I had now bought my first flat and I'd been in and out of the travel club. So my caps weren't stable, so I didn't get an England game. But I did manage to get Spain against Ukraine in Leipzig. I paid €27 for that game. It was category 3. €27. And generally, actually, World Cup tickets have been in US dollars. So I'm not sure why that was in euros, but that's the price stated on the ticket. I've still got it. It's still there to be seen on Twitter. South Africa in 2010, I went to 4 games, including one England game. Each one of those was category 3, each one $80. And then the last World Cup I went to was Russia in 2018. I only went to one game, and that was the last group game, England against Belgium in Kaliningrad. That was category 3. It was behind the goal. It was $105. Now, I didn't go to Qatar, but the price comparisons, well, they've been doing the rounds recently. General costs were group matches, category 3, was $69. Round of 16, $96. Quarter final, $206. And of course, that was as far as we got. But a final ticket would have been $604 for category 3. And as comparison, category 1, $1,607 for the final in Qatar. I don't want to overly complicate things by bringing UEFA into this, but for reference, a final ticket in 2024 in Berlin against Spain cost me, and many others, €95. But there's different strings to that. The football associations, including our own FA, need to take a stand and say this is unacceptable. I know there's a Football Supporters Association of Europe. There is our own FSA, Football Supporters Association. They're both fully against these prices. But I'm not sure they really have the power to change things significantly here in this instance. Unless various countries come together and make a stance and say these prices are unacceptable, then nothing's going to happen. Will they say, we're not taking these tickets? I doubt it very much. They will take them. Our own FA have been very quiet. Our own supporters club, well, you can't really blame them. Basically, they're a middleman passing on FIFA's prices, but they have said very little as well. People say it's pointless protesting at our next game as the ticket sales will be in the advanced stages by then. And yes, that's true. I get that. But I disagree about sort of it being pointless protesting. Our March friendlies against Uruguay and Japan are our first and only opportunity to come together as fans, as England fans, and show our feelings. It may well be too late by then, but come on, we have to say something. We have to stand up. Can't just lay down and be rolled over. People who have been intent on shouting about Keir Starmer at recent games, listen, this is your chance to shine. Manchester City fans, well, they'll often protest by booing the Champions League anthem. They have their reasons, whether you agree with them or not. Bayern Munich fans will often unveil protest banners against the cost of tickets. They both get social media traction. People notice them. As England fans, we need to do something too. We need to come up with a chant, a song. We need to stay on the concourses for a specified amount of time so it looks like when the game started there's no one in the stadium. And then when we're asked why, it needs to be said it's against the people who run the game. It's the only way change will happen. I don't know. Are there other ideas out there? We need to come together. Throw them at me. Throw me ideas. And I've said previously, I said in the last episode, that I don't begrudge anyone going to the World Cup. If you've worked hard to earn your money, you can spend it in any way you see fit. But I'm beginning to feel that if you do pay those prices, then nothing is going to change going forward. FIFA will look at the next World Cup in 2030 in Spain, Portugal and Morocco, I mean, that's the one with the 3 games in the 3 South American countries, so that's just bizarre anyway. But they'll say, look, people paid those prices in 2026. We can charge them that again because they'll pay that again. It's just the way it is. All this, and I've not even touched on the secondary ticket market side of things. Throw in the cost of internal travel, accommodation, day-to-day living, and then on the pitch as well. You've got the heat for the players, the hydration, TV ad break. There's the Pride match. There's the media talk of American immigration looking at your previous social media posts. It makes me feel sick. As I said the last time, it just makes you feel icky. It's just all wrong. That said, it is only fair that we get another perspective. Now, back in the summer, I recorded a 3-part mini-series looking at each host nation for the World Cup. So now we're a little further along. We know our venues. We know that England will be playing those first 3 games across the United States. So I thought this is an ideal time to catch up with a good friend of the show, our American friend. It's Gaurav Singhvi over in the States there. Hiya, Gaurav.
Hey, Russell. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Yourself?
I'm doing good. It's nice to be back on your show.
Always a pleasure. I like you. You bring a bit of American razzmatazz to the show.
I try to do my best.
Well, I mean, since we last spoke, which was back in the summer, and you kind of gave us the lowdown on how things were back then. Now we are 6 months further along the line. Quite a bit has happened, which we'll touch on in a moment. But what's the general feeling in the States and around you and your friends? How are you feeling about it at the moment?
Yeah, so I think the first thing I would have to say and I would have to acknowledge is that I was wrong about, I think the demand has been much higher than I thought it would be. I thought that because there was more games and larger stadiums, I didn't think there'd be this high a demand for the tickets, or I thought maybe there was enough supply to meet the demand. But it just seems like the interest has kind of been much higher than I thought it would be. Even with my friends who are into soccer or football, I mean, they've been looking forward to it for a long time. But even acquaintances and friends who aren't really into the sport too much, but even they seem to be excited about it, wanting to try to attend the matches. So I think the demand has kind of been and the interest has been much higher than I thought it would be. I don't know if it's possible to kind of get like a tangible sense of I don't know if I feel like a palpable excitement yet, because it's still some months away, and the venue, it's a very large countries and the venues are quite spread out. So I don't know if that's something I really feel, but I do see that there's a high interest level and very high demand to attend.
Yeah, because we're speaking on the 11th of December. This is the day that the specific match tickets go on sale. Previous to this, sort of ticket sales and interest had been done by like a random lottery, and I think I read that FIFA had said that either 2 million tickets. It must be 2 million tickets, or
yes,
it can't be 2 million in value, but 2 million tickets had already been sold.
Yes, I believe they've done 2 windows, and I think they sold 1 million in each window. And I think per calculations people make, and this is kind of an estimate, you don't know the exact figure, but there's about, if you were to calculate across the capacities and the number of matches, there's probably about between 6 and 7 million tickets available. So I think that might be another way to look at it, is even though there's been a high interest and there's been a high demand, they've sold 2 million tickets, but I think per estimates, there's still probably maybe 4.5 million tickets still out there to be sold.
Gotcha. I see. I mean, I say we're talking about but today, particularly the 11th of December, is where specific match tickets have gone on sale. Tickets for fan groups or sort of like the England supporters travel club equivalents across various other um, nations, they go on sale, I think, in the next few days. So it's all a little bit vague at the moment, but we're now beginning to hear of how much tickets are generally costing, and it has to be said, there is a bit of an outrage so far. I don't know if you've seen this on the likes of social media, or if over in the States there's similar talk of how much ticket prices, how excessive they are, or is this the norm?
Um, yeah, so I think the ticket prices, I mean, they're definitely high. They're definitely highly priced. That's for sure. I think when they did the first two phases, you were kind of buying tickets, like you mentioned, before the draw had come out. So you're kind of maybe buying more on just wanting to attend in general, or
Yeah.
maybe on a location that you were able to go to, or on a date you were able to go. And then I always felt that maybe after that point, when the actual matchups came out, some of the ticket prices, might rise because it's an attractive matchup, or some of them might become lower on the secondary markets because it's not a very attractive matchup. In terms of the prices, I think the prices are high. Nobody wants to pay that, but I'm not surprised given the demand that there is that FIFA are able to command these kind of prices. I don't think anybody is happy to pay these kind of prices, but I think there's a feeling here that it's kind of a once in a lifetime event, and it's maybe worth splurging for that. I know you and a lot of the guests you have on your show who follow England. I think you folks are pretty mobile, and I've been to several World Cups, and you go to a lot of the away days during qualifying and whatnot. But I think for the people here, even not only the casual fans, but even the people who are really into it, I think a lot of them feel that this is maybe their one and only opportunity to see a World Cup, or to see the U.S. team, or see international soccer. So I think that's one of the reasons why they've been able to command such high prices.
Gotcha.
And
Yeah.
then I think the other thing to keep in mind is I try not to get emotional about these things. I try to look at things logically and analytically, and I think I don't, maybe people might not make much sense of this, but I think the way I look at it is that even if they were charging low prices, that doesn't necessarily mean people would be able to attend, because it wouldn't really change the demand side of things. There's only a limited number of tickets to be sold. So even if the prices were much lower, I'm not sure if that would really help my prospects in getting tickets, because there'd still be the same number of people applying. In my mind, it's just it is kind of what it is. It's a high demand event, and I'm not sure if it's just worth dwelling or perseverating about how high the ticket prices are.
Yeah. So you're over on the West Coast, I think, aren't you?
Yeah, I live in LA, so I live maybe about 10 miles from the SoFi Stadium, which is one of the venues. It's where the LA Rams of NFL play, and
Gotcha.
that's one of the sites here. And I want to say there's going to be about 9 matches here.
Okay. I mean, have you already applied for a ticket? Have you got a ticket yet?
Yeah, so actually I did apply to some during the first two rounds. I applied to some just kind of blindly to the venue specific, and I did manage to get tickets for 3 matches
Okay.
here. So I think one of them is Iran versus New Zealand. We have Belgium versus Iran. That's Group G that was drawn here, and then the other one is Switzerland versus we don't know yet. It could be Italy, or it could be one of your co-nations from the UK, Wales, or Northern Ireland.
Ah, you got one of
Uh,
the playoff tickets.
yeah, one of the playoff tickets. And then the other thing I should mention is that the U.S. team is playing 2 matches here in L.A. They're playing the third match of theirs in Seattle. They're part of Group D, and I think those ones I did apply to, but those are probably some of the most expensive tickets, the opening match and the other match here, because there's a high demand for those for the 2 matches they're playing here. So So that's another kind of key point in terms of LA and its hosting the World Cup.
Yeah. Well, we'll come back to the sort of the pricing and maybe how to sort of reduce outgoings for people that are going. But you mentioned obviously the draw when you found out who would be playing who for your tickets there. I assume you, like the rest of the world, saw the draw with Gianni Infantino and Donald Trump. How did that go down?
Actually, funnily, I didn't get to watch that because
Oh,
I was working at the time. It was a 9 a.m. Where I live, so it was a working day, so I was working. I was following along on the BBC. Yeah, I think it seemed like it was not. Seems like they're trying to be entertaining, but I don't know how entertaining they ended up being. I think that's just kind of the way things are done here. It's kind of a spectacle,
mm,
and I think when you add President Trump onto it, it becomes even more of a spectacle because he's always wanting to be the center of attention. But I figured it would be like that. It's just one of those things. I think at least I think a lot of Americans were maybe a little embarrassed or just maybe roll their eyes a little bit. But I think it's one of those things again where I don't think I understated how much excitement there is for this event, but I think now I'm seeing that I think there's just a huge amount of excitement and interest in this event, and I think like anything that Americans do, it's kind of maybe becoming over the top, but I think that's kind of speaking to how excited people are about the event. And again, I think this was kind of more marketed to the American fan who's more casual, so they don't really watch Champions Leagues draws or Euro draws or
yeah.
even maybe prior World Cup draws. So I don't know if they would have any sort of baseline to compare it to. But yeah, just one of those things where you just kind of roll your eyes, but then you just kind of get on with it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, England will be playing more sort of centrally and eastern. We've got Croatia in Dallas, Ghana in Boston, I believe, and Panama in New Jersey, New York area. There's going to be supporters going out there. The prices aren't going to put everyone off, but you've got some tips on maybe how to make the trip a little bit more easy on the wallet.
Yeah, and first, I think the first thing I would want to say is, I mean, I don't want to minimize how much things cost or how expensive things are, and I definitely empathize. There is, I think even, when we're talking about prices and how expensive the World Cup tickets are, I think this is just kind of in line with just a generalized inflation or increases in prices we've seen since COVID. So it's not just these tickets, but I think people are frustrated about just how much goods and services cost in general and how
Right.
expensive things are. So, I certainly don't want to downplay how much this costs, but I knew I was going to be on your show, so I did a little bit of research to see if maybe I could, kind of get an idea of where things stood price wise, and if there was any kind of any insight I could offer. So I did see that, I just kind of was looking on some of the search engines, and I saw that if you wanted to take about a 2 week trip from the UK over here to watch the three group stage matches, I saw flight tickets were running about maybe between $1,100 and $1,500, which is probably about £1,000 maybe, or
Yeah.
900 pounds, yeah, 800 900 pounds. Which I feel is probably in line with how much tickets cost to fly over here during the summer because it is a fairly busy period. And I think there's this perception out there that because there's a World Cup or an Olympics in some place that there's going to be I think it does drive traffic to the event, but maybe it just kind of replaces people who would have been coming here for whatever reason anyway. So those flight tickets seem to be pretty much in line with kind of what you would expect at that time of year. Maybe slightly higher, but not as high as I was expecting.
Obviously, the
So what I
sooner people book, the better.
Yeah,
Obviously,
yes,
yeah.
yes, exactly. And I think what I would recommend then is the first match is in Dallas, and then I think the next match is in is the next one in Boston or
Is it Foxborough? Is that
okay,
Boston?
that's Boston. So
Yeah.
what I would recommend, since there's a little bit of a gap between those two matches, is I would probably stay in the Dallas area as long as you could, because I think that Dallas is generally probably much cheaper than the Boston area. And
Okay.
I did find that there seemed to be a good supply of decent accommodations around the Dallas stadium. I was looking, like within a 10 to 12 mile radius of the stadium in Dallas, and I was finding a pretty decent accommodations for 6 to 7 nights for like $500. So which is not bad. So I would probably fly into Dallas and then maybe just kind of hang out there few days before heading out east. I think that could definitely save some money. And then I looked up the one-way flights, to the Boston area for Dallas, and again, they seem to be kind of in line with what the prices typically would be. I think the timing is always difficult because sometimes if you buy it too early, you may think you're getting a good deal, but sometimes the prices can actually drop
Yeah.
as a closer you get. So I think for domestic airfare, they typically recommend about 1 to 3 months in advance is when you get the best deals. But maybe because of this is a World Cup, so maybe 4 or 5 months might be uh, a better time frame. Another thing I found in my research is that if you stayed in a place called Providence, Rhode Island, so that's kind of in between I'm sorry, between Boston and New York,
Right.
and I think that's kind of a smaller city, but I think the accommodations would be, I think, less costly there, and I think it's got good train links to both Boston and New York. It kind of sits in between the two cities, so that might be something to look into because that I think when you're in the Dallas area, I think getting to the stadium and getting around, the public transport system is not as well developed. But I think when you get east, New York, Boston, we have a pretty good rail system up there, the Amtrak.
Yes.
So, yeah, so that could probably help in terms of getting around there kind of much more easily. Um, and what I would recommend for the Amtrak, if people want to utilize that is probably the sooner you book, the better.
Okay. So, I mean, is that available to book now, or is that like it can only be done
No, it
free?
should be open now. It should be open now.
Okay. What what sort of the internal airlines sort of should people be looking at?
Um, so I think Dallas is a very large city, and flying east from Dallas, I think there should be many options. There's probably at least a dozen, or maybe more flights a day from Dallas to Boston.
Okay.
And I think and against, Providence and Hartford is another city that's kind of Hartford, Connecticut, Providence, Rhode Island. These are two cities that are kind of in between, you can say, New York and Boston, which offer pretty good rail links to both. So I think if you're looking to fly from Dallas to that area of the East Coast, I think maybe $200 might be a good price you could get, or at least that's what I was seeing when I
Hmm.
looked a couple of days ago. Which and I think that would probably be the last flight you need to take because after that you can rely on the rail transport. I think in between the East Coast cities.
So how far away is, or the sort of a rough distance between Boston and New Jersey?
So I think by train it's probably about I want to say 3 hours.
Okay, so it's sort of a London to maybe just past Birmingham way here.
Yeah. So maybe from London going up north somewhere. And that one, it runs with a pretty high frequency. I want to say there's a train leaving every hour. And I did look, and there is good public transport links to the stadium in New Jersey. We have something called the New Jersey Transit, which you can connect from the Amtrak, and that goes right to the stadium. And then I think to the stadium near Boston, Foxborough is a suburb of Boston, and I think I looked as well, and there is a public transport option to get to that stadium as well.
Okay, that's good to know because I think before when we said about when we spoke that we said the stadiums are they're not sort of central to the cities, are they?
No, um, some of them are, some of them aren't. The one in Dallas, I think, could be a little bit of a problem. getting to vis-a-vis public transportation, because Dallas is a very large city. It's very spread out, and it doesn't have. I think people are more reliant on cars there. The public transportation system is not as built out. But I think ride share is an option, and I think the stadium in Dallas where this match is going to happen is where the Cowboys of the NFL play. So I know there's a lot of hotels that are closer to the stadium. They offer services to and from the stadium.
Right. Yeah.
But I think then you may run into the problem. The closer you're staying to the stadium, it's going to be more costly. Whereas I have found accommodations 10 to 15 miles away that were pretty decently priced. But then it would kind of be I think that's the one venue where the transportation to and from the stadium might be a little bit harder to figure out. I know we do have a big driving culture in this car, so I mean that's always an option, is to rent a car, and drive that. But and if that was what some people would want to do, I think that would be something too where I look early and try to book as early as possible for a rental car, because that one you're not obligated to pay for beforehand. You can just kind of rent it, and then you can even track the price over the next few months to see if the prices fall. And that may come in handy as well if the folks decide to stick around Dallas for a little bit longer, because like I mentioned, I think it'd be less costly to stick around the Dallas area with that time to kill in between the two matches.
Yeah, that makes sense. Always good to have some insider knowledge there.
I think the food costs, I think that's kind of in line with a lot of things around the world where there's just been a generalized inflation of food over the last 4 or 5 years. But things do seem to be kind of stabilizing over the last few months. So I think hopefully by the time the World Cup rolls around next year, the prices will have somewhat stabilized, and won't be rising crazily like they have since the COVID times.
I mean, what's the? I'm trying to think what a staple restaurant would be that you could get almost across the country that's a decent price that everyone could sort of get to. Like, I don't know, say for example, here in England, you've got like obviously we've all got a McDonald's, but there's like a Pizza Express, let's say.
Yeah.
So you're getting good value and a decent quality.
So I do visit the England and the UK quite often, and I would have to say it seems like so maybe the fans might be in for us, not a huge pleasant surprise, but maybe a slightly pleasant surprise, because I think food does seem to be more expensive over there than it is over here, and I think especially in the Dallas area. I think, East Coast, New York, Boston, those areas are more expensive. But I think maybe in the Dallas area, the fans might be pleasantly surprised. I think things are a little bit less costly.
Okay.
We've got all kinds of things here. There's half a dozen pizza chains. I think maybe you're familiar with some of them. Domino's, Pizza Hut, and we have Papa John's. I mean, I think if you're in the Dallas area, Texas, I think Mexican food is pretty big out there. There's obviously some chain Mexican food, like Del Taco or Taco Bell, but I think you'd be pleasantly surprised. You'd find a lot of stuff, mom and pop Mexican food stores that are, pretty very good taste, and I think they should be pretty economical as well. So I think I don't think the food costs, hopefully they won't be as big of a factor for people.
Yeah, yeah. Here's one. I mean, obviously, there's always a lot of talk of the heat over there, and there's nothing that anyone can really do about it other than having sort of a few air conditioned stadiums, aren't there? I think the Dallas Stadium is air conditioned as well, isn't it?
Yes, Dallas Stadium is indoors, so that one shouldn't be a problem for the fans or the players in terms of the elements. I think Dallas is quite hot in mid to late July. So I think that's maybe something the fans should just be aware of. But again, pretty much everything here is air conditioned, and I think that could be mitigated pretty easily.
Yeah, there's one thing that has again come to light in our media, and we all know how the media like to sort of spin things and it's been spoken about before, but entry into the States, and some people having their social media being investigated or the like. Is that something that you've heard of? Is that something that actually happens?
So I think this just came out maybe yesterday or the day before, and they said that I think this is specifically applying to people with wheat from countries with the visa waivers. So I think the UK would be one of those, and I think they're saying that they may look through social media of for the past few years of people who are entering. I don't really know what to make of that. I don't think it's a good thing, obviously,
Mm,
but I can't imagine it being too much of a factor. I don't know like how they would pick somebody randomly or how much time they want to waste.
well,
Kind of,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah. So I think a lot of things. I don't want to say they're made up or they're hype because there is always an element to truth of this. But
Of course.
I think what I would say is a lot of things get announced or trial ballooned, and then they're not exactly what they seem when they come out, or maybe they never kind of see the light of the day.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's maybe yeah, it's good to be aware of these things, but I don't know if that should be a top of mind concern for
Yeah.
anybody heading over there.
And you mentioned about sort of the people or nations that will need proper documentation to get into the country. One of those, I think, is Iran, and that's one of the tickets that you or teams for the tickets that you've got, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, so yes, so I think so yeah, visas could be an issue for people from many countries. I think I went to the last two World Cups, Qatar and Russia, and I think how it worked there is if you had a ticket, you got a fan pass, which was a visa that you could enter the country. Here, they did not make a similar. There's no commitment like that, or there's no program like that, but they did make a commitment that if you have a ticket, then you can get an appointment for a visa. Much more quickly to the top of the line. So
And would that be with the
that's the one.
embassy then?
With the embassy, yes,
Yeah.
they've hired. What I read is they've hired a lot more consular staff to kind of help process those appointments and interviews and visa requests. Now, it's interesting about Iran that you mentioned. Yeah, obviously, even predating any of the recent changes we've had since
Yeah.
our President Trump, as U.S. has had a long-standing no diplomatic relations with Iran for almost 50 years. So I think for Iranian people trying to come from Iran to watch their team here, I don't think that's going to be possible. But we do have a very large expatriate Iranian population in Los Angeles.
Okay.
Some people actually call it Tehrangeles because it's it's such a very so I think so that actually we all know how random these draws are supposed to be, but there's the part of me that's wondering if that's why maybe they could have been placed in LA because there's so many of them, and I think it is a soccer mad nation, and
Yeah.
I know a lot of them that I'm friends with, acquaintances with, that I run into on a day-to-day basis, and they love the sport. They love their country, even though a lot of them left for political reasons. So I think those, ironically, even though Iranians probably won't be allowed to come and watch their country, but those might be some of the most popular tickets that will be sold here in the World Cup. You
Yeah.
basically, and I think it would definitely be a home game for Iran here against Belgium and New Zealand. I mean, obviously, those are small countries who maybe may or may not travel well, but I think whoever Iran would draw in LA, maybe even the U.S. team, they would definitely have a huge amount of support here and could be easily called the home side.
Yeah. One to watch. Well, I'll tell you what, in the last, what we got 5 minutes left, let's talk football. You've seen the draw, you've seen who's playing who, and possibly the pathways that some teams have got. Who stands out for you at the moment?
Well, I think since you put on such a good show and I listen pretty religiously, I always follow England very closely. And of course,
You're
I'm a
very
fan
kind.
of I'm a fan of the league, and I know the players the best. So I think so that's always one I look out for, and I think you have to think it's their time. Obviously, I don't know if you could call them the favorite. There's so many factors and
Yeah.
so many things that can happen. But I think England, they seem they've got such a deep bench. They've been playing really well in the qualifiers. I think they have I listened to I think one of your recent podcasts where you were discussing Tuchel with some fans and what they thought of him, and it does seem like somebody who's blunt and able to speak his mind. He seems to know what he wants, and he seems to be doing a good job. So I think definitely for me, England is one to watch out for. I did not really look ahead in terms of the draw and who they might play for any of the teams because I think that's kind of a fool's errand. But
Mm.
I think England stands out for me. I think France also stands out. I think they're just as talented as England. Maybe a little bit light in the midfield compared to England, but I think they've done well in the last two World Cups, and I think this is the coach's last go around. So I think that might galvanize them. So I think France is one to watch for me. I like Spain a lot. I feel that they're maybe the best team here, but I'm not so sure about their chances because they lack the depth that England and France have. So I think they lost one or two key players, they'd be in kind of in a much worse position than the other two. So I think those would probably be the three standouts. Argentina, I think, is definitely part of that group as well. And I think maybe they might have some slight advantage being closer to home
Yeah.
soil. I like Carlo Ancelotti. I think he can turn Brazil into a contender as well. So I think those five, I would think, would be at the top of my list. And I think I would maybe throw in the Netherlands as a dark horse. I think since I watch English football so much, it seems like almost all of their roster plays in England, and I think they do seem to have a lot of talented players, but they just can't seem to put it together as a team. But I think that might be one dark horse that I would offer up.
Okay. And go on for the homegrown team, the United States. Can you see them? Can you see them getting into the knockouts, getting through the group?
Yeah, so I think we got a pretty favorable group actually. We don't know one of the opponents because it could be. I think it's Pathway B UEFA. It could be. It's the one that Turkey's in, so that
Oh
could
yeah.
be one of the opponents. But the other ones, Paraguay and Australia. I think. Ironically, we actually beat both of them in friendlies earlier this
Oh
year.
really?
So so I think the U.S. is definitely well placed to win the group or definitely get out of the group and even win the group. And it seems like over the last few months things have been improving. They've been playing better. I think Pochettino settled in here more. And I like a couple things that he's done. I think one is he's given he's kind of called upon many players, and he's even given a chance to a lot of the players who don't play in Europe, and the ones who play domestically in MLS, and they
Yeah.
seem to have kind of responded. And I think whether or not they get picked for the World Cup, and whether or not they play a role there, but it seems like he's done that to maybe galvanize some of the more well-known or star players to kind of who are to not take their position for granted and to compete to get the position. So that seems to be working. The other thing I like that he's done is that I think when he started it, he'd never coached international before. He'd never lived in America before. So I think there was an adjustment time in terms of how things worked here, communicating with media and fans. But it seems like he's kind of become more confident in that role and kind of seems to have a better handle on how things work here and what to do. And it seems like he's just kind of become more confident as a coach as well over the last couple months. So I like that. And, obviously he has a pretty good track record as a
Yeah.
coach in
Yeah. I was going to
general. So
say.
so I'm pretty optimistic now. The expectations, I think, are always a little bit tricky. There's some people who have very unrealistic expectations of this team, but I think for me, my expectation, I think they should win the group pretty easily, and then if they can win that first knockout match and make it to the round of 16, which would probably put them up with a tough matchup, I think that would be very good for me.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, we have to realize that we're still trying to get better as a footballing nation. So I'd be happy with making it to the round of 16. A quarterfinal would be awesome.
Well, we shall see. Gaurav, thank you very much for your time. Always helpful, always insightful, and always great to speak to you. Maybe we can speak in a couple of months' time when we know a little bit more.
Yeah, anytime. And if any of your listeners want to reach out to me, if they have any questions or if there's anything I can help them with, I'm happy to do that.
Well, we'll try and connect you. Thank
Take
you
care,
for that.
Russell.
My thanks to Gaurav there. Always enjoyable to chat with him. We didn't actually touch on it, but he's actually an AFC Wimbledon fan. And he comes over on occasions to support them. He's part of the supporters club for Wimbledon. If you know your football stuff, you'll know the way that AFC Wimbledon is run, and he has a stake in that. Is that the right way to say it? But he's active in helping AFC Wimbledon. So he has a real insight into the way English football is supported and viewed. And as you heard there, he very kindly offered his help. You can follow him on Twitter, or X, at Gaurav Singhvi. Let me spell that out for you. GAURAVSINGHVI. He's also on Instagram too, at Gallivating Gaurav. GALLIVANTING _GAURAV. Once again, thank you very much to him. Thanks as always for listening. It is always appreciated. I'm not sure if this will be the last one before Christmas. Usually I do try and make them a little more cheery. I am trying to organise a chat with fans of all our World Cup opponents. So hopefully I can make that happen. If it doesn't happen before Christmas, can I take this opportunity to wish you and your families an enjoyable one. Merry Christmas. Thank you so much for all your support over the past year. And as I said at the beginning, don't forget you can follow the show, social media, just search Three Lions Podcast and give it a follow, all the usual stuff. So let me leave it there. Look after yourselves, your families too, and I'll be back with you very soon. Cheers.